Well, good afternoon and welcome to the final consultation webinar session on the expansion of the nationwide house energy rating scheme to existing homes. Today's focus will be software tools and accreditation. My name is Joanne Reedy and I will be your chair today. My role in NatHERS is Director of the Program Delivery Team. This means that I focus right now on the day-to-day delivery of NatHERS for new homes and that I'll be responsible for delivering the existing home scheme from launch. So I'm very interested in making sure these consultations yield excellent information that optimises the design of the future scheme. Now, if anyone is having any technical issues today in accessing, hearing or seeing the presentation, please email admin@nathers.gov.au. and someone will get back to you. We've got people manning that email account today. The email address, in case you missed it, is on your screen right now. Now, please note that today's webinar is being recorded and that it will be published on our website in coming weeks. I'd like to start the session today by acknowledging the First Nations people throughout Australia and recognising their continuing connection to country and culture. I'm joining you today from Canberra on the lands of the Ngunnawal people, and I'd like to pay my respects to their elders past and present. I'd also like to extend that acknowledgement and respect to any First Nations people joining us here today. The structure of today's webinar is shown on the screen now, and please note we've pre-recorded the presentation. Before I hand over to the team, I'd like to provide those of you who are new to the Nationwide House Energy Rating Scheme, or NatHERS as we fondly refer to it, with some background information. If you were in the first or the second sessions, this will be a little repetitive. For over 30 years now, NatHERS has been providing an evidence-based and data-driven way to assess the energy performance of new homes. It is the preferred energy rating method across Australia for demonstrating compliance with energy efficiency requirements under the National Construction Code. With regards to existing homes, there is significant opportunity to help drive improvement in Australia's existing housing stock, with most homes built before the introduction of minimum energy performance requirements, which we're happy to see in the home designs for today. We also know most homeowners will need better information to make informed decisions when buying, selling or renovating their existing home. So, just like new homeowners, those in established homes should have access to reliable information on energy performance and advice on upgrades that can be made to reduce home running costs and to improve comfort. And that is why the Australian Government has committed to achieving this through the expansion of NatHERS to existing homes. We're really pleased that you could join us today to be part of this consultation process on the proposed approach to delivering the expansion of NatHERS to existing homes. And while we know that there is a lot of work still to do to ensure that NatHERS for existing homes is fully functional and fit for purpose, it is worth reflecting that the scheme already has an established national governance arrangement which is administered by the Commonwealth on behalf of all states and territories. It already has legitimacy and credibility and is supported by the best available science from CSIRO. It has nationally established third-party delivery partners and over 800 assessors accredited for new build ratings. And it is accepted by international investors as a trusted and verifiable source to support green investment. The development pathway for the expanded scheme was agreed by Energy and Climate Change Ministers in late 2023, with this consultation a key part of the expansion pathway. With all of that in mind, the key purpose of this series of webinars is to provide you with information on what's proposed for the expansion of NatHERS to existing homes and an opportunity to ask questions and seek clarification about the information covered today. In a minute, we'll be showing some pre-recordings from Jo Brennan, who's leading the NatHERS program design team. She will briefly outline the structure of consultation and will give us an overview of NatHERS. We'll also be hearing from Zara Abbasi, who is leading work developing existing home benchmark tools and relevant technical settings for NatHERS for existing homes. And from Lachlan Cheers, a trial project lead from CSIRO, who's provided a demonstration of Magic Plan and Accurate in action. After these presentations, I'll be opening a session for questions using a tool called Slido. Slido will be able to be accessed via the QR code that's on your screen now or via the URL link and with the code NatHERS as you see it on the screen. We'll show you these again after the presentations. Now, we welcome you to submit questions throughout the presentation, but all questions will be moderated with a preference given to questions that are most relevant to this session and that have been asked by an individual or organisation, as opposed to those that are asked anonymously. And this will be done specifically so that we can manage the high volume of questions that we are anticipating. The moderators will also be attempting to reduce duplication, so please bear with them while they sort through the questions. Okay, I'm going to hand over now to begin the presentation.
Thanks, Jo. I'll provide an overview of the consultation process and take you through a general overview of NatHERS for existing homes. I'll then hand over to my colleagues who'll take you through the rest of the presentation. On Monday, the 29th of July, we released the NatHERS for Existing Homes consultation paper. It was published on the department's consultation hub and also on the NatHERS website. We welcome feedback in any form on the proposals outlined in that paper. So it could be a comprehensive submission from your organisation that responds to all of the questions outlined in that consultation paper, or it could just be a short letter with your organisation's general views. We're also running these webinars to provide an opportunity to ask questions or seek clarification on the proposed approach to expanding NatHERS. The session today focuses on energy rating tools and accreditation. We'll also be publishing the webinars from sessions 1 and 2 shortly, which focused on consumer experience and the assessor services, including training, accreditation, and auditing. I'll start with an overview of NatHERS for existing homes. So let's do a quick refresh on the nationwide house energy rating scheme. NatHERS provides robust, reliable, and credible assessments and ratings for homes. It's administered by the Department of Climate Change, Energy, the Environment and Water in the Commonwealth on behalf of all states and territories. So the purpose of NatHERS is to help improve the design, construction and energy performance of Australian homes to reduce energy waste and demand. The scheme does this by giving people information and modelling tools that can assess different options. For example, at the design stage of a new building, NatHERS can provide information about how the design or window layouts can be changed to reduce the need for heating and cooling. At that stage, different options can be tested and the house can be optimised at its design stage. At the existing building stage, NatHERS can provide information about what upgrades could be made, such as adding window shading or installing an efficient heating or cooling device, and again, different options can be tested. The final output from NatHERS is a star rating out of 10 for the thermal performance and an overall energy rating score for the whole home. So the higher the rating, the more comfortable the home will be to live in and the less energy the home will use, making it cheaper to run. There's a significant opportunity to upgrade the energy performance of Australia's housing stock. Most Australian homes were built without consideration of Australian climates, and most were built before the introduction of minimum energy performance requirements. Improving the energy performance of Australian homes will help us meet net zero emissions by 2050. Residential buildings still account for more than 10% of emissions and around a quarter of electricity use. I'd say many of you here could probably relate personally to a story about living in an uncomfortable home, and that's because the average existing home in Australia has an estimated rating of less than 3 out of 10 stars. New homes are required to meet a minimum of 7 stars under increased requirements for energy efficiency in the National Construction Code 2022. So improving a home from 3 to 5 stars could reduce the amount of heating and cooling needed by around 40%. Recent research by ClimateWorks demonstrated that full electrification of appliances and solar PV plus thermal upgrades could save households thousands each year. NatHERS for Existing Homes aims to provide consistent and comparable ratings to support improved energy performance of homes and supports a range of broader objectives. Thermal performance improvements can help increase the comfort of homes, while installing energy efficient appliances can help reduce energy costs. NatHERS also provides information on the greenhouse gas emissions associated with the operational energy use of the home, with upgrade advice aiming to help reduce emissions. NatHERS also values energy at the time it's used or produced in the system, helping to reduce energy demand on the grid. The development of NatHERS for existing homes will be delivered through 3 stages. So in late 2023, Energy and Climate Change Ministers agreed the development stages with a focus on design, build, trial, operate and scale up. We're currently consulting on stage 1 for launch in mid-2025 with a proposal on the delivery model for NatHERS for existing homes and trials underway. There are also ongoing opportunities for consultation on guidelines, rules and strategies that will underpin NatHERS, and that consultation will run out to 2025, although much of the detail will be run through NatHERS advisory groups. Ministers will be presented with a final design of the existing home scheme for consideration in 2025 to allow for launch mid-2025. Post-launch of stage 1, there'll be further work to enhance and scale up NatHERS in readiness for disclosure and other demand drivers. There are a broad range of drivers for the availability of ratings for existing homes, as it's a key enabling mechanism for a range of targeted building policies. The drivers range from overcoming information barriers for households, supporting the disclosure of energy efficiency at the point of sale or lease, or enabling grant programs or financial products to accelerate investments in upgrades.
Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Zahra Abbasi, Senior Technical Officer of the NatHERS Tools and Technical Team. My team has been responsible for developing the existing homes benchmark tool and the relevant technical settings, which I will explain in more details in this presentation. Now I will explain the current and new arrangements for the benchmark tool. Currently, the benchmark tool for new home assessments is Accurate Home, which uses Chennault as its core calculation engine. It is a desktop tool which is downloaded and used on a computer without an internet connection. Chennault and its settings for Accurate Home are based on the best available data and research. These settings were developed and agreed through comprehensive processes over a number of years under the Energy Ministers and Building Ministers governance arrangements. The new arrangement for both new and existing homes is to move to a cloud-based benchmark tool, which is called Accurate Enterprise. A cloud-based tool means that it is available to developers to undertake calculations on a central server using the internet. The Accurate Enterprise for new homes is a cloud-based tool which uses the same calculation and settings as the desktop version of the benchmark tool and is currently undergoing NatHERS accreditation. The Accurate Enterprise for existing homes is also a cloud-based tool and will use the same thermal and appliance energy modeling calculations as the new homes tool. However, the existing homes tool requires some adjustments to assumptions and data fields to capture the differences between new and existing homes. Now I would like to explain the current approach versus the proposed approach. The first figure displays what is currently managed by CSIRO and what is managed by the NatHERS accredited software. The current approach is that the NatHERS accredited software collects dwelling data, undertakes calculations to send to the Chennault engine, calculates thermal star rating and whole of home rating, while the CSIRO's Chennault calculation engine calculates energy loads based on the inputs from the NatHERS accredited software and returns the numbers to the front-end tool. Now the second figure displays the proposed approach and what is going to be managed by CSIRO and what will be accredited by the NatHERS administrator. So NatHERS administrator will only accredit the user interface. So that means that the tool developers will only develop user interfaces rather than calculation engines. The user interface collects dwelling data and sends it to Accurate Enterprise and receives a rating from Accurate and certificate from CSIRO's certificate portal. The Accurate Enterprise receives dwelling data from the user interface and undertakes calculations to send to the Chenot engine. Chenot calculates energy loads based on the inputs from the Accurate and returns the numbers to Accurate. And Accurate calculates the thermal star rating and whole of home rating. The cloud-based central calculation tool has many benefits. For example, it supports the consistency and comparability of ratings for all homes. It also minimizes the administration time, cost, and potential for delays related to software accreditation because the tool developers will only develop user interfaces rather than the calculation engines. It also eliminates the need for the tool developers to duplicate calculations into their tools. And it provides the opportunity to incorporate innovative data collection approaches into the user interfaces. 64 technical settings for existing homes were approved by the NatHERS Steering Committee and are being implemented into the Accurate Enterprise benchmark tool. The agreement was informed by comprehensive reviews and technical analysis through specialized technical working groups. The settings were designed to meet the proposed objectives of NatHERS for existing homes. These settings are specific to existing homes, such as additional air leakage inputs and calculation factors, and a method for determining the performance of window covering. There are also settings related to heating and cooling, water heating, insulation, shading, and solar PV, which are also specific to existing homes and are being implemented into the benchmark tool. The development of existing homes benchmark tool, Accurate Enterprise, will be through several stages. In November last year, the technical settings for existing homes were comprehensively reviewed and discussed through specialized technical working groups. We invited experts from industry, university, and states and territories to attend these technical workshops as technical advisory committee members. The outcomes of these workshops were sent to the NatHERS Steering Committee for approval, and the NatHERS Steering Committee approved the technical settings in March 24. After the approval, a proof of concept existing homes desktop tool was completed in April 24 using the approved technical settings. This desktop tool will not be used for release. However, it was developed to demonstrate that the settings generated acceptable initial results so that conversion to the cloud-based approach could commence. A trial version of the cloud-based Accurate Enterprise for existing homes mode was made available to the NatHERS administrator for testing in August 24. And the integration of Magic Plan user interface is also underway. This trial version will be available to interested stakeholders upon request. The trials of tools and processes will also commence from mid-24 to early 25. The results of the trials will be integrated into the tool from early 25, and therefore the tool will be trialed and refined before final testing and committee approvals to establish it as the NatHERS Existing Homes benchmark tool, which will be launched in mid-25. I now take you through the approach to software accreditation. In the proposed approach for existing homes energy rating tools, all calculations will be undertaken by the Accurate Enterprise Existing Homes mode, which is the CSIRO's cloud-based online calculation engine. So the third-party tool accreditation will be considered only for user interfaces. That means there will be a single core calculation tool with multiple user interfaces. Third-party tool developers would be able to code user interfaces and achieve accreditation to connect to Accurate Enterprise, the existing homes mode for rating calculations, and certificate generation, including upgrade advice. Now, what are the impacts of the proposed software accreditation approach on the market? Although the preferred approach is different from the current approach to new homes, it will not change how NatHERS for new homes is delivered. Current market participants for new homes, such as accredited software tool providers and assessor accrediting organizations, will still support new home assessments and ratings. The use of NatHERS by building industry participants to demonstrate compliance with the National Construction Code will also remain unchanged. The NatHERS administrator is committed to continual improvement, so any changes to NatHERS for new homes will follow established processes, including consultation. The proposed software accreditation approach will facilitate market innovation to develop new data collection methods, such as using mobile device technologies like Magic Plan to minimize the amount of time spent on site for data collection while still delivering reliable ratings. It also offers enhanced client services, which may include modeling of upgrade advice options and costs and benefits of those options. It also allows potential integration with modern building industry software and emerging trends, such as building information management systems. Now, what are the impacts of the new software accreditation approach on the NatHERS administrator? The new software accreditation approach improves the NatHERS administration in the following ways. Moving to a central CSIRO's online calculation engine and providing accreditation only for third-party user interfaces will help to streamline software accreditation by reducing the testing burden for both the NatHERS administrator and software developers. It also provides opportunities for automated error checking. And it also enhances back-end statistical analysis and policy insights. Finally, it helps to improve audit and assurance approaches. The proposed method for software accreditation aligns with the existing homes design principles. That means to ensure ratings are consistent and comparable between existing homes and new homes. It also prepares for disclosure initiatives, including through creating a centralized platform for home ratings across Australia. It also enables governments to incorporate the latest science or policy insights into energy rating tools directly. For example, changes to climate or emission data. It also allows enhanced data provision to other end users, such as financial institutions or government grant programs. Now I would like to talk about third-party user interface development and requirements. A draft user interface software accreditation protocol is under development. The user interface protocol and related processes will detail mandatory inputs and outputs required to meet accreditation standards, and also testing methods and materials. The user interfaces will still need to have their accuracy tested against standardized house plans. However, the existing homes user interface protocol is expected to be streamlined compared to the current NatHERS for new homes software accreditation protocol, because it will not require retesting of each energy rating tool's core calculations. The reason is that, as mentioned before, they will be calculated by the cloud-based benchmark tool. The user interface protocol and related processes will help the integrity of NatHERS and protect consumers. These are expected to cover issues such as appropriate use of home energy rating certificates, evidence collection rules, conditions on use of trademarks and logos, user access management controls, and quality assurance and monitoring conditions. There are resources available to support tool developers to develop their user interfaces. Some resources are available now, and some other resources are available over the second half of 24. The resources which are available now are including a beta version of Accurate Enterprise for New Homes mode, which is available upon request to CSIRO. Also, programming methodologies of how to connect with Accurate Enterprise through application programming interfaces or API, which is available from CSIRO. For a small fee, third-party developers can also join the existing CSIRO user group for Magic Plan. And there's also a developmental alpha version of the Accurate Enterprise for Existing Homes mode with the ability for assessors to enter and review data, so which is available now. Now, what resources are available over the second half of 2024? A beta version of the Accurate Enterprise for Existing Homes mode, as well as the draft API requirements, will be made available. Also, a draft software standardization and thermal specification document will be made available to the stakeholders. There's also a draft national calculation method incorporating new and existing homes method. A draft technical and guidance note setting out how an assessment should be completed on site will be also made available. And a draft user interface software accreditation protocol. And finally, Magic Plan customization to collect data from existing homes and speed up entry. Initial development of user interface tools can commence now prior to the release of the user interface software accreditation protocol. However, please note the tools will not be able to create certificates or use the NatHERS logo until they have passed the accreditation process and been granted accreditation status under NatHERS. Also, please note official accreditation of user interface tools is not expected until Accurate Enterprise for Existing Homes mode, as the NatHERS benchmark tool is launched in mid-2025.
Well, that was wonderful, and I hope you found that informative. I trust that she will have answered many of your questions, but I appreciate that you may have more questions. Before we get to those, we're going to have a 5-minute Magic Plan and Accurate Enterprise demonstration. So I'm going to hand back to the team for this before we get into the Q&A session. Please note that the audio on this video is quite quiet, so you may have to turn up your volume.
So in this video, we'll be demonstrating data collection using Magic Plan for an Accurate Enterprise NatHERS rating. We begin through the Magic Plan app. The LiDAR version is available on the iPad and iPhone Pro. From here, we create a new project, enter the name, add the address, and then we begin with our scan. We can select the auto scan feature to begin, starting in a corner of the room. We see the application using LiDAR to collect the floor plan in all 3 dimensions and the 3D render below to display what you've already scanned. Augmented reality overlays the LiDAR scanning with white lines to show in real time and space what you're collecting. So you can see how the application automatically detects windows, doors, and has some object recognition. We hope to leverage this in the future for whole of home appliances. And the image below can opt between 3D and 2D. Here we see the 2D option just letting us know when a scanned wall is complete, so when it turns green. Important to note that while this scan has had a few cuts to speed up the process, the video itself and the data collection, the collection itself isn't sped up, the video is in real time. So once the scan is completed, we can choose to accept it. So we've now collected all the spatial data required for a NatHERS assessment. The other portion is the construction information. So this is completed throughout our custom forms. So these forms at a project, floor and room level set the defaults for what the floor, wall, ceiling and insulation levels are. Once set at a floor level, the room level you would only change if it is different from the default floor level. So this may be the bathroom, selecting that the bathroom has a tile floor rather than the default. Once everything's been labelled, the plan can easily be edited from here, making any adjustments required. Once we're happy, we can export this directly to Accurate Enterprise or to a PDF. So this PDF has a room by room breakdown, including all those construction forms that we've filled out, all the spatial data, and also any images that you've recorded for evidence points for whole of home. So this might be appliances or highly glazed windows. So this finishes the data collection portion, and this next portion is the energy rating portion, or the NatHERS assessment portion. Here we see Accurate Enterprise, and with a quick refresh, the project appears with all of the data pre-filled. So from here, the NatHERS assessor can make any adjustments or changes required as documented by the data collector. And from here, they can also conduct the analysis and generate a NatHERS rating. Thank you very much.
Well, Lachlan, that was really great. It was a really clear run through, and I hope that's helped our attendees today in answering some of your questions. I know that from Zara's presentation, from some of the information that Joe's given you, and from Lachlan's demonstration, that you may have further questions, and that's great for us because it will help us to make sure that we're designing a program that really meets your needs. You now have an opportunity to ask those questions. So we've got just under an hour to respond to your queries. I'm going to introduce you to our panel members, and I'm going to invite those panel members right now to turn on their camera and audio. Hi, everyone. We've got Jo Brennan. She's the lead of the expansion of the NatHERS to Existing Homes program. We've got Leonie Wilson, who is leading our tools and technical work for NatHERS in both new and existing homes. We've got Dave Brenero on the line as well. Dave is leading our data work and is supporting both the policy and tools teams. And our final panel member is Anthony Wright from CSIRO. Anthony is he is the building energy efficiency guru. And welcome, Anthony. Thanks so much for coming and joining us today. Please note that detailed technical settings will be released in coming months, but we welcome your questions on this. We won't be able to answer them all in great detail at this point in time. All questions will be reviewed following these sessions and will be used to update the NatHERS website. Right, let's get into the Q&A part of the webinar. As you can see, there are two ways to access Slido. Option 1 is to scan the QR code that's on the screen now. Option 2 is to visit www.slido.com, enter the code NatHERS, NATHERS, in the Joining as Participant box. If you have any issues and you want to submit a question, please email that question to admin@nathers.gov.au, and we're going to aim to either transfer your questions across into Slido or get the answers back to you directly after the session. Okay, let's see what we've got up already. Leonie, I'm going to ask you to tackle this question. What is the workaround? It's from Romney Bishop. What is the workaround for the vast areas of Australia, even outer suburbs of major cities, where there is no phone or internet access?
Thanks for that question. So the data collection software being trialled for the benchmark tool does offer offline functionality. However, the internet connection is required to input the data back into the Accurate enterprise. So when you return to your office, we expect the commercial tools that choose to develop software would also develop something similar with an offline functionality. But as you note, we're going into trials, so we will be having that opportunity of trialling how things are working out in the field.
Great, thank you, Leonie. Also from Romney, and Anthony, I might give this one to you. What are the annual license fees for Magic Plan?
Sure. So the minimum license fee is $50 a month, I think, for Magic Plan, but they have a range of other licenses. So there's enterprise licenses and other licenses with additional features and so on. So I just recommend you go and check out the Magic Plan website and go there to them directly for that one.
If you can stay open to receiving this question, Anthony, that'd be great. How do people request a trial version of Magic Plan?
Magic Plan's a third-party tool, so there is no trial version. Essentially, you need to take a license to Magic Plan and then join the Accurate Enterprise user group, which will be available down the track. I might actually defer to Lachlan on that one. How do we make the Accurate Enterprise connection available to assessors?
We will have a link available to sign up, but if it was just the Magic Plan features that you were trying to test, then you can download the app from the App Store or the Play Store and begin scanning now to trial the features yourself.
Thanks, Lachlan. And I realise I missed you off my introduction. I apologise. For all our attendees, Lachlan is also here from CSIRO, and I thank him for his presence. Okay, Joe B, I'm going to hand this question to you. At what point is it likely that mandatory disclosure will require an existing home energy assessment at point of sale and point of tenancy? That's from Marcelo.
Thanks for that question. That's a great question. Ultimately, it will be a matter for individual states and territories to determine, when and if they will implement mandatory disclosure. So just to sort of make that point up front, in terms of the detail around how it would apply, obviously the framework allows for both point of sale and point of tenancy. However, through the development of the framework, states and territories have been looking at different options around phasing. And, point of sale is, the most applicable point in a transactional process where people can take action around upgrades and upgrade advice. So, that's a very sort of appealing point to trigger disclosure, because there are more opportunities for owners to take direct action. But ultimately, those settings are a matter for individual states and territories to set. However, the important part is the disclosure framework is a comprehensive process being negotiated, by all Australian governments, and the point of that is to harmonise and bring forward a nationally consistent approach to help industry streamline processes and things like that. So I encourage you to have a look at that. That framework is actually also available for comment at the moment, and you can have a link to that on our consultation hub. That same place we've got our NatHERS consultation posted, so you can actually read the detail around that framework if you would like to, and provide a submission, although those submissions close slightly earlier, so the 23rd of August. So encourage you to get onto that one. We definitely want to hear from you if there are views.
Thanks, Joe. They're so closely tied together. From Graham Hunt, and I think, Leonie, I'll bring you back for this one. Will the details of the 64 technical settings be provided for information and review?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So as described by Zara Abbasi in her presentation, there has been a long process to develop those the analysis around the settings, and so we will be making those publicly available. We're just finalising the whole of home calculation method and also the thermal settings into the standardisation documents, so they will be available later this year. Thank you.
Thanks, Leonie. All right, we have a question from an anonymous person. Will the rating provided be equivalent to new homes? That is, if a new home is 7-star, will the existing homes be in the same scale and show as say, a 3-star home? Joe B, would you be able to answer this one?
I'll start and others can jump in as they would like. So look, the approach to the design of the existing home scheme is to ensure that we can provide consistent, comparable ratings between new and existing homes, and a lot of that is and probably goes to the second question there as well around, how can consistent and comparative ratings be provided. So it is, very much about ensuring that the ratings that people get exposed to are based on the same sort of underpinning scales and metrics, etc. So I couldn't comment exactly what the star rating of an existing home would be, but yes, we would anticipate it would, relate to that home's energy performance, and which, we know from the data on the current state of play for existing homes that most of those homes are at 3 or sort of below. We don't have a full sort of stock model available, but from the research that's been undertaken to date, that is the sort of average or below. And yes, and it will help people understand that a new home is, high performing. We have new minimum requirements for the first time in a decade with the introduction of the National Construction Code in 2022, and it will help households and consumers and those looking at buying, particularly between new and existing homes, to understand the energy performance and the differences in the energy performance between those homes. So that's probably enough, unless anyone wanted to add to that.
Okay. I know, Joe, that you referenced this question. Yep. Well, could we bring it up, because it was closely linked to it? So the question that Marcelo is asking, how can the existing homes rating tool provide a consistent and comparative rating when different inputs are calculated? For example, window coverings are counted when these are not a structural item and are not counted in either whole of home or new home assessments. So Joe, would you like to pick up on some of that? And I'm also happy if other panel members want to jump in to respond to that question too.
Yeah, look, I think it really, thanks for that, Joe. And I think it really builds off the answer to that last question, which is about providing, consistent and comparable ratings in a format that people can easily compare across, that are based on the same metrics and calculation processes. And I think Zara covered it quite well in her presentation, where she talked about the way that the approach to existing homes and those technical settings has actually leveraged years worth of work for new homes that now underpins the current approach to whole of home performance ratings. And so things like window coverings are really important in an existing home, and we know that some state schemes, rely on having information around those things. So we have proposed to include them. However, we really welcome your views on the merits either way of these things. That's why we're running a genuine consultation at the moment. And if you do have views around some of those technical settings, we'd welcome hearing about them. But yeah, we wouldn't anticipate it would be a massive difference. And as I say, there's still existing and new homes are still being rated based on the same thermal performance metrics and rating scales, and similarly for the whole home performance. So that really does provide that consistent and comparative approach.
Okay, any other panel members want to jump in, or we move to the next question? Okay, let's keep going. How is it expected that existing levels of insulation be determined? Joe, is it okay if I give this one to you? I know that I've been asking you a lot of questions.
Now that's good. It's a great question. Thank you for your question. We do appreciate, this is one of the areas, I think, it's a good example of where for an existing home, you don't have detailed plans and specifications available that will tell you exactly what value of insulation is in exactly which wall, ceiling and floor, if you're lucky enough to have all of that. So in terms of existing homes, it is really important to be able to make valid assumptions, and through the technical settings we've provided a range of defaults for things like insulation, where we want to make sure that assessments are undertaken in a safe way. So we wouldn't be requiring assessors to get into ceilings and things like that. So there needs to be a way in which assessors are able to make reasonable default assumptions, and that's all part of the technical work that's been undertaken across six separate technical working groups over a 6-month sort of period with relevant industry expertise. And for insulation in particular, we know you can't get into walls, you can't see what's there, so making reasonable assumptions about the age of that building and what the minimum requirements may have been at that time are some of the ways in which we're dealing with setting default assumptions around some of these things, which are more difficult to see.
Thank you, Joe. Anthony, we're going to give you a run for your money now. Magic Plan scans only the internal features. Will external features such as eaves, overshadowing, etc., have to be collected manually? And that's from Graham Hunt.
The short answer is yes, they will have to be collected manually. So Magic Plan's capable of doing a standard eave that goes around the entire house. Beyond that, you need to collect the data independently. That can be done through the notes and forms and photographs in Magic Plan. Once those photographs are taken and the notes are created, they all go into the final report, which lands with the energy rater alongside the accurate input data. So it would be up to the energy rater to input some of that data manually. Similarly, and perhaps to head off a future question, things that are above ceiling level, like skylights and clerestory windows, would have to be entered the same way. Magic Plan doesn't scan what's above the ceiling. So I'll leave that one there.
Thanks, Anthony. Okay, the demo was cut for time, and Joe, I'll throw back to you. The demo was cut for time. However, do you have an average time from data collection using Magic Plan to certificate generation from trials with valuers? In addition, any privacy issues using Magic Plan? Can you give Tom Reed some information about that?
Yeah, sure. So in our trials, we did 400 homes with I'm going to say 8, but it might have been 16 valuers. And we found that it took about 3 weeks for them to get up to a consistent speed scanning the houses. And when they got there, it was somewhere just less than 30 minutes, so 27, 28 minutes from memory, to do a house. Obviously, that varies a little bit house to house, depending on how large the house is and how complicated it is to scan. But sub 30 minutes was a kind of consistent number. What was the second part of that question? I'm sorry, Joe, I've completely forgotten.
If that's okay. It's about privacy issues using Magic Plan.
Yep. Yeah, so Magic Plan doesn't record the video that you saw. Lachlan's had to record that on his iPad, so nothing is actually stored other than the PDF plan that you see and the input data. If you were to take photos in the homeowner's house, you would obviously need to make sure you didn't take photographs of things that identified that person or things that might be potentially sensitive. We're going to have to navigate that as we move through this whole scheme, and I'm sure NatHERS will have some guidance on that in due course. But yeah, so Magic Plan itself doesn't store the video or any of the images other than the photographs that you take. When it does store the photographs, it is stored within the app, so it's not shared beyond the app into your photographs on your personal device, for example. So yeah, it's reasonably well protected.
That leads actually quite beautifully into the next question, which is for Joe B. And I know I said Joe B before and Anthony picked it up, and I hope no one's confused about people's identities. But Joe B, can you have a go at this one from Paul Matthew? Will generalised or anonymised data on star ratings and other features of existing buildings be available to the public or to researchers?
Thanks for the great question. I think in terms of providing and disclosing data, we've got the fantastic resource available at the moment with the Australian Housing Data Portal. Encourage you to go and have a look at that if you haven't already, for anyone on the call. In terms of the level at which data will be available to the general public or researchers, you know, we continue to look for opportunities to improve that, and you know, in collaboration with the CSIRO. I think, you know, that's one of the reasons that there's a lot of demand for, or a lot of desire to see disclosure come to fruition to ensure that there is, you know, a full set of data available for buildings across Australia. You know, it's always on our list to try and provide as much data as possible while continuing to protect the privacy of individual households. So there's always that balancing act, I think. That's probably all I can say at this stage, other than that there is an amazing suite of data there available for research in the current version of the Australian Housing Data Portal, and that we continue to look for future opportunities to provide as much data as possible, as freely as possible in principle. Don't know if Anthony, you wanted to add anything on that, or Dave? Yeah.
I'm happy to jump in there quickly. We are looking at data and monitoring and reporting as a standalone stream, as listed in the consultation paper as well. We will look at trying to disclose as much data as possible as a matter of principle. I believe the mandatory disclosure framework also talks about a centralised data access point to make it very clear when disclosure may be mandated in the future, that's a very clear single reference point for anyone wanting to seek that within that jurisdiction once it's mandated. And one of the main benefits of the proposed model is having all of this data centrally located, that it can be accessed easily and efficiently, and data mined for research, for public policy development, and for public access wherever possible. So that's both for new and existing buildings, to build up that knowledge of the existing buildings, but combined with the new buildings over time. So we are working with IT on how to do that properly, and also consider other elements of the scheme and how we can bring that data together in terms of assessor management, location, contacts, etc.
Thanks, Joe, and thanks, Dave. And Paul, I hope that helped and that we hear from the University of Queensland. We have an anonymous question which I'm going to give to Leonie. Why has the NatHERS software tool accreditation process changed between new homes and existing? Is the same engine being used?
Thanks, Joe. That's a really good question. So yes, the same engine is being used. Just some of the settings around having to accommodate existing homes where we know there are small differences around very old homes have been changed, and so that will be explained very clearly for the assessors in the technical note, which is in draft and will be tested through the trials. So the reason for the accreditation process changing between new and existing homes is that during particularly the National Construction Code 2022, there was a lot of work required to accredit the software tools. So this delivery model of having one benchmark tool and allowing the third-party user interface development is the preferred approach that we're outlining in the consultation. Hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, I think so, but people may have more questions. Thank you, Leonie. All right, how do you account for the impact of varying occupant behaviours in your assessment? And Leonie, I'll keep with you to answer that one.
Thanks, Jo. So NatHERS rates the home, not the occupants. So we make assumptions on the occupant behaviour within the tools to enable consistent results. But during the trials, we will be testing the opportunity for assessors who can provide information to occupants to help with any behaviour change for the individual homeowners.
Thanks, Leonie.
So yeah, I might just add to that. Sorry, Jo.
Sure, that's
before
fine.
you jump into the next question. So I think it is a really good point. Just building off what Leonie said there is that need to, especially for disclosure purposes, be able to compare the building outside of any occupant variance or behaviour. So that is really important because we know occupant behaviour has a really big impact on energy use, depending on that household's profile and their lifestyle, etc. So that is really important for disclosure. So you're able to compare homes, on a like-for-like basis. In terms of the really important role for assessors, just building on that, there's one thing to get a rating, but there's another thing to want to take action. And we do know there is a really important role for assessors going forward in that expertise they bring through their energy advisory services, for example, and being able to tailor upgrade action plans and things to that actual homeowner's needs and lifestyle is really important, but it's not something that the scheme can easily deal with while providing those like-for-like ratings. So that's why we think, the scheme and its market environment, they're really important and interact to provide homeowners what they need for taking action.
Thanks for jumping in, Jo. That's good. Leonie, back to you for this next question. Is Magic Plan the only approved software to be used for collection?
Thanks, Jo. So going into trials, Magic Plan is the data collection tool that CSIRO, Anthony might want to jump in and speak to that, has been working with. So there's an established opportunity to use Magic Plan, but there is no commitment to use Magic Plan going forward. As part of what will be available at launch, it will be the Accurate Enterprise Existing Home tool with its own user interface and this option for a data collection through Magic Plan, but it's not the only one. And it's not an approved software under NatHERS, it's just a data collection option. Thanks.
I think Leonie's answered most of that. There's no, connection between CSIRO and Magic Plan in particular. We've been working with the Magic Plan tool as a proof of concept for a number of years, which is why it's kind of ready now and can be used now. But the API that allows Magic Plan to send data to Accurate Enterprise is available to anyone who wants to develop a similar tool. And I've certainly been approached by lots of parties who are interested in doing that and other kind of integrations as well. So if that's your interest in using another tool or something down the track after the trials, you can certainly get in contact with me and my team, and I will explain how you can go about exploring that option.
Wonderful, Anthony. Thank you. And stay on the unmute button for us because the next one's for you. Can you please, this is from Brad, can you please confirm the devices with LiDAR capability for Magic Plan data? As I'm thinking a lot of people are going to need an upgrade.
Yes, so it's only the pro versions of the iPhone and iPad that can be used. So used with the LiDAR at the moment. The Magic Plan can be used without LiDAR. It's just a little bit clunkier. You have to kind of point and click at the corners of the room rather than letting the LiDAR do this, the auto scan option that Lachlan showed in his video. So it's not that you can't use Magic Plan. It's just that it will take a little bit longer, and I can't tell you exactly how much longer it will take because we've only trialed it in the LiDAR version.
Okay, thank you. Leonie, I'm going to ask you to answer this one from Di. Will there be preset defaults provided that need to be used for attributes unable to be safely collected?
Thanks, Joe. The example I'm going to use here, because Di hasn't stated it, but going back to Joe Brannan's earlier response around the insulation. So yes, if it's unsafe to collect the data and information about what's in the ceiling, with regards to insulation, then there will be a default based on the age of that building. Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Leonie. So Marios is asking, how many softwares will be out there for existing homes? Leonie, you can take this one too, eh? Thanks,
Joe. So we're going into the trial period now. The trial tool is the Accurate Enterprise Existing Home with the Magic Plan as a data collection option. So at the time of launch, which is mid-2025, we're expecting that we will have the same scenario and a lot of the learnings that we have through the trial to improve the Accurate Enterprise Existing Home tool. In the meantime, we are developing a user interface protocol. This means that the third-party user interfaces out there who would like to develop some software and review the draft protocol, which we're working with our technical advisory committee on in the coming months. We expect that that would be available by early next year. If people are interested in being part of the working group, we are setting up an expression of interest via our website for any software tools out there who have an interest in testing either the alpha tool for Accurate Enterprise in development mode and or considering being a third-party user interface. We will be making draft materials available to people. Obviously, it's a business decision as to whether people take these forward, but there is that opportunity to be a third-party user interface, and those materials will become available as we work through our technical working groups to finalise them.
Thanks, Leonie. And just to update our audience, we've had close to 200 people today, and we've got streams of questions coming through. So we can see there's a lot of interest. Please keep asking them. We will endeavour to answer as many today in the remaining just under half an hour, but also to get back to you later with other responses where we can't answer them today. So from Dr. Clive Anderson, and Anthony, I'll ask you to answer this one. How will solar panels and appliances be included in the assessment?
I'm not sure if that's a question about how the data will be collected or how the calculation will be performed. The calculations are, as I think Zara said in her presentation, similar to the way new homes are calculated with 63 tweaks that came about as a result of the technical advice to NatHERS. In terms of how the data will be collected, the solar panels will need to have to be entered as separate data in Magic Plan. Obviously, they're not part of the scan, so they'll need to be sent through and entered by the energy rater. The appliances, we're hoping we can collect a lot of that through forms in Magic Plan for the purposes of the trials. And as we progress in future, we're hoping that some of the object recognition can be used to locate and recognize certain appliance types and those kind of things down the track as well. So the short answer for the purpose of the trials is that the data on solar panels and appliances will need to be collected by the person who collects the data in the home and passed to the energy rater as notes, forms, photos, those kind of things.
Thanks, Anthony. For you also, I think, Anthony or Lachlan. Paul Worrell is asking, is the age of the building or building components considered for the rating tools, given that materials degrade in terms of performance over time?
So that might be a combination for us and NatHERS. So yes, age is taken into account. So things like insulation defaults where you can't determine the real insulation value will be based on the age of the building. Whether those defaults account for deterioration over time, I don't think that's the case at the moment. I think they're based on what the minimum standards at the time of construction would have been, not on any subsequent deterioration. That's certainly something that could be considered, though, I suppose, and I don't want to speak for NatHERS, this is their consultation, but if that was something you had an interest in, I'm sure they'd be happy to hear that advice.
Yeah, thanks, Anthony. I'll just follow up with that. So through the trials, obviously the settings will be tested in the tool. At the end of the trials, there'll be a lot of findings and learnings from that, which will then go back out to our committees to be consulted on, and improvements made into the tools and the tech notes. So if there's an opportunity there to have consultation on the trial findings and any tweaks that might be made to the technical settings, and perhaps this is one of those. But really looking forward to going to the trials and see what the findings from the trials are. Thanks.
Thank you, Anthony, and thank you, Leonie. Joe B, for you, from Julie. Will the certificates generated provide recommendations for improved star rating, or will this be a separate process under the scheme?
Thanks for the question. Yeah, look, I think one of the really exciting things about moving into providing assessments and ratings for existing homes is being able to provide easy to understand and access information about how to improve your rating. That could be your thermal rating, so your thermal performance rating, or it could be the whole home's performance through additional actions like appliance upgrades, etc., or installation, even if that appliance doesn't exist at all. So yes, we will be the certificate. We did a session actually, one of the first sessions we ran. We're hoping to get that up online as soon as possible, but if you're interested in finding out more about certificates and upgrades, we did quite a deep dive on that in our consumer experience session. But ultimately what we're aiming to provide is a really simple 2-page certificate and upgrade advice plan. And so what that will include is climate tailored upgrade advice that's cost effective and able to be implemented. So what that means from a building perspective is, that if you've got a particular construction type and it wouldn't be feasible to install insulation underfloor, for example, then then that wouldn't be a recommendation that would be made in our upgrade advice. So it's really exciting to be able to provide that the ability for people to take action and to improve the comfort and performance of their home through this new initiative under NatHERS.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Guy is asking a question, which I think I'll give to Leonie. Are the collection, input and data requirements for existing homes available today to review?
Thanks, Joe, and thanks, Di. So this is primarily for those that understand NatHERS, culminates in the technical note that the assessor uses as the rules as to what needs to be collected and what inputs and how the information needs to be put into the software tools. So the technical note for existing homes is currently been out with our technical advisory committee. We're reviewing those comments and then a draft of that document will go into the trial mode. As part of the trial mode, the technical note will be made available for those assessors that are working on the trial, and I expect that at some point we'll be able to also put that on our website. Thanks.
Thanks, Leonie. All right, do you need to be an accredited NatHERS assessor to produce a certificate? Joe B.
Thanks. Thanks for everyone for the great questions that we're getting today. I really appreciate all your engagement. For existing homes, we are proposing that all assessors operating under the scheme would need to be accredited. That's seen to be important because, in terms of reputational issues for the scheme. We want to make sure that everyone operating, going and talking to households and essentially operating under the NatHERS brand really is able to be to have action taken if things aren't going as they should be, for example. So having accreditation and assurance, quality assurance, quality control processes and compliance strategies where NatHERS administrator can take action is really important in this space. And a lot of people don't get access to their NatHERS certificates and ratings at the moment. They're primarily used by building professionals. So actually having that touch point with households, at the home, in the personal space, it's really important that we're able to, have all of those really robust processes around managing assessors and ensuring they're all doing the right thing and providing reliable and credible results and ratings to households.
Thank you, Jo. All right, from Daniela. Has any thought been given to access to data from original development applications such as plans, etc., to assist with floor plans and any upgrades that may have been made to the dwellings? Leonie, can I throw that to you, please?
Thanks, Jo. Just getting my head around that question.
I can maybe jump in there briefly.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it.
We have had discussions around trying to facilitate the use of DA applications and current plans. Of course, if a house is relatively new, often the plans are either with the council or the homeowner might have them, be able to provide them to an assessor or a data collector to streamline some of the data input. Getting them electronically and facilitating them into a user interface might be an option that developers could consider. We have had initial conversations with CSIRO, but it is a complicated process. It is one of the things we'd like to do over time and consider how it could be integrated with building software as well. There's other building software out there and BIM processes that ultimately it would be great if it could flow smoothly with people's current business operations, but it's not something we've solved at this stage. I don't know if Anthony has any comments in addition to that. But I'd love to hear any ideas of how it could be done efficiently and quickly. That'd be fantastic.
Sorry, could you just repeat the question? My screen's been frozen since question 2, so to make sure I'm answering it correctly.
It was about asking. It was asking about whether data from the original design of the home, I think, if I've understood it correctly, could be used. Yeah.
Yep. No, thank you. So look, there's no reason you can't. So Magic Plan, just by way of example, will allow you to trace over a floor plan in PDF like you do in some of the other existing NatHERS software for new homes at the moment. So theoretically, if you had the plans before you went out to that house, you could trace them into Magic Plan. I'm not clear on how, if you encountered, for example, a renovation, they've added an extra room on the back or something like that, how easy it would be to then scan that room and add it in the same floor plan. I imagine it's possible, but it's not something I've tried. So it's debatable whether it would actually save you time or not in some ways to do it in the office before you went out there. So it's something I'm keen to kind of look at in the longer term, but it's not something we've spent a lot of time investigating at the moment. It's certainly possible though. So I think that's probably all I can add to that, Dave.
I'm also just jump back in at the last part of the question, talks about upgrades. So if upgrades have been made to the dwelling and the homeowner has that evidence either through an approved DA or through receipts or installation documents from a plumber or from another business, that's the kind of thing that an assessor can take into consideration in modifying the defaults that might be in the tool, because they have additional information that they can be more informed about what data they enter. And there'll be guidance on those types of things and how to use certain types of evidence in the assessor guidance notes.
comprehensive response from between you all. Thank you very much. We've got just under around about 10 minutes left for answering any questions. I'll ask Joe B to step in to answer Dave's question, which is next. Will assessors be able to be part of the development and review processes?
Thanks for the question, Dave, and appreciate your engagement across all these webinars. Yes, we want to be working with assessors. Absolutely, you're a critical part of the success of this scheme. So we would welcome, interested assessors to reach out to us. We will be setting up an expression of interest process through our website. We're just in the process of trying to get that organised and online, but it should be available shortly. And through that, assessors will be able to express interest in being part of the trials. But there might be other areas of the development and review processes that we're hoping to get, advice from and expertise from your professional perspective. And that could include things like design of upgrade advice. It could be participating in the trial. There's a range of different things that we're hoping to work with the industry on. And if you are keen to be involved in the meantime while we're getting the EOI organised, just flick us an email to admin@NatHERS. That email address will be available at the end of this presentation as well. But yeah, reach out to us. It might take us a little while to get through all the emails following these webinars, so just be patient with us. We only have a relatively small team here, so but we are keen to hear from you, in short. Yeah.
And we have actually, Joe, we've heard from a number of assessors who are interested in being involved, which is really heartening. I'm enjoying hearing from them. Okay, so Leonie, this one's for you. Does the site visit capture any information on the air tightness of a home? Does the whole of home include assessment of air tightness?
Thanks, Joe. That's a really good question. We do capture in the existing home tool air leakage for gaps around the windows, doors, and architraves and exhaust fans and the like. There is an option in the tool if you did want to get a blower door test, that rating could also be included, because that would be obviously very good evidence as to how airtight the home is. Thanks, Joe.
Stay with me, if you don't mind, Leonie, for the next one, which is what's the process to get a tool accredited?
Thanks, Joe. So as I mentioned before, for third-party user interfaces, we are developing the user interface protocol that is being drafted within the department currently, and that will go out to our technical advisory committee. So NatHERS has a technical advisory committee, which some of you, I'm sure, are members of. And so it will go to the committee. We'll be establishing a particular software protocol group as well. So there'll be an opportunity. We'll have an expression of interest, not unlike what Joe Brennan has mentioned for the assessors. So for software providers that are interested in our process, there will be an opportunity to join a working group, and that will help us work through the final requirements of the user interface protocol for the accredited third-party tools, and then that will go through our committee process further later this year. So our NatHERS steering committee will need to approve that protocol. We expect that then it would be finalised in the first half of next year. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Leonie. Anthony, this one's for you. Would it be possible to get a home energy rating from a floor plan, for example, in remote and regional areas, not requiring an accredited assessor to physically attend the home?
It's certainly possible to do the rating. Whether it's allowed under NatHERS rules is a different matter. So I might bump that to
I'll
Joe,
take
I
that,
think.
Anthony. Yeah, I'm happy to take that one. Look, it's a really great question, and I think we are definitely looking at ensuring that the scheme is practical, accessible, and that's really important, that we can provide ratings at scale. to all areas of Australia, including remote and regional, but also to diverse communities. So we are thinking about the design of the scheme in relation to accessibility and making sure that everyone has equal opportunity to get a rating. That's also really important if you think about the scheme being able to be adopted into a mandatory disclosure setting, where you want to be able to ensure that you're not going to create like any bottlenecks in the process of sale or lease, if that's where settings went. So you really want to be able to get ratings at scale. It's a really important part of what we're doing in the trials at the moment. So, heard us mention valuers a couple of times, and there is amazing coverage in terms of that profession across Australia, around 98 or higher postcodes covered around Australia. So we want to make sure that where an assessor is needed to do a rating on site, because the information isn't available from a floor plan, etc., that assessors are accessible and available. So it's a really important principle. I think, in principle, we're saying, look, as long as a valid energy rating has been undertaken, that it should count as a valid rating. But I might take the detail of that on notice and be happy to get back afterwards if you wanted to send us an email.
Thanks, Jo. Anthony, what about this one? How will you model double or multi-storey dwellings?
I'm not sure exactly what that question's asking. It's possible to model double-storey or multi-storey dwellings in the NatHERS tools already. How you will scan them in Magic Plan might be what the person asking that question is getting at. In that case, that is absolutely possible. You can scan stairwells and so on, and you can add multiple floors to the Magic Plan scan. So I don't know whether I've answered that one well or not, Jo, but that's all I've got to say on that, I think.
That's how I would have read it too, Anthony. Okay, is the short demo video available to rewatch after the webinar?
I've got a confession here. You may not have guessed it, but Lachlan and I are not videographers. That is not our finest moment in some ways. We cobbled that together from a scan that of a house that is different from the floor plan that you will have seen in that video and so on. We want to do a better job of that and make that available. The video you've just seen will be in the recording of this session, so you'll certainly have access to it after the fact. What I would like to do is do a much more comprehensive and longer one and get someone to help us with the video editing and make it a lot clearer and consistent from start to finish. And once we've done that, I'm hoping to make it much, much more available. So if you can hang out with us for a little bit longer until we get something that's really nice out to you, I would appreciate that.
Thanks, Anthony. Okay, you can see now that we've stopped putting questions up onto Slido. There's one remaining, which I'm going to give to Jo B in just a second. We're winding down so that we can just finish off and say our goodbyes to you. Jo, will this eventually mean that there might also be the ability to combine an assessment for an alteration and addition to an existing building for regulatory purposes for building approval?
Thanks for the question. That's a great one to finish off with. I think, in the introduction of the presentation today, you will have seen that NatHERS, we're designing this scheme, the expansion to the scheme, to deliver on as many end uses as possible. NatHERS is a really important enabling measure that supports targeted building policies. Through its measurement and reporting of energy performance for homes. So there are a whole lot of future uses that might be possible under the expanded scheme. Our first priority is to get the scheme designed and launched and operational, and then to look at, to continue working with all governments around possible future uses. What I would say in terms of those matters, they're really a matter for state and territory governments in terms of what requirements they set around building approvals in their own state or territory. So it would be a matter for them for the future. But for the moment, where what we're doing in existing homes will have no sort of impact on the current regulatory environment. It'll be up to future considerations by governments as to how they look to use it in the future.
Thank you, Jo. And I'd like to extend a thank you to all of our panel members. There are a lot of questions, and I appreciate that attendees today will be aware that they will have asked questions that we haven't gotten to, and as I've outlined before, we will endeavour to get back to you with responses. All right, thank you everybody for your time today and for your thought-provoking questions. If I can ask you please to go to the DQ Consultation Hub, because our papers are up there for you to read, and we would love for your questions and your thoughts to be translated into submissions that we can consider to design the best existing homes program that we possibly can. Now, all 3 of these webinars have been recorded and will be published on our NatHERS website. And if you have any follow-up questions or queries, please contact us at admin@nathers.gov.au. Thank you very much for your attendance here today and in other webinars, and have a great day.